Hey guys, so we're back in the barn, and following on from our video series with the deadlift, about how to deadlift, we're going to take you through a squat tutorial video. Real short, real simple, looking at some key aspects of the squat. That's what you guys asked for, so yeah, let's go on with a squat tutorial. Okay, so the setup for the squat is really important. We want to make sure we're in a nice stable position. Okay, the squat is all about stability, make sure we stay nice and tight. So what I like to do, I like to keep things exactly the same, whatever type of squat I'm doing. I don't have a huge amount of variance, but I'll start with the setup. So even before I even take the bar out, I'm going to get my hands in exactly the same spot. For me, I usually use an 8-foot squat bar, so I tend to go a little bit wider, but basically the narrower you can go, the better, as long as you get a full grip on that barbell. So we're looking for a nice even grip either side, hands either side, full grip, okay? I'm not really a big fan of a finger grip or a false grip. Make sure we're pulling down on that bar. From there, you pull yourself under the bar, keep the bar nice and high. So there's a lot of debate about kind of high bar and low bar squatting. I'll get back to that in a minute. But for now, we're going to look at a high bar squat. So we're looking to get that barbell nice and comfortable on our traps. And then from there, we're pulling our elbows down, making sure we've got a nice solid shelf for the barbell. From there, when we're stepping out of the rack, make sure we're staying nice and tight. We take our feet both under the bar at the same time instead of a split stance. I think this is a lot more stable when you get into a good pattern of how to do it. Pick up the barbell, take 2 steps back, and make sure you set your feet. So in terms of foot position for the squat, I like to get guys in a nice even stance, just kind of either at shoulder width or slightly above shoulder width. And from there, if you imagine you're in a clock face, you're going to turn your feet out to 11 and 1 o'clock. Okay, so instead of from a straight on position here, we're just going to turn our feet out slightly. So we're in 11 and 1 o'clock. Okay, from there I feel like it gives us a really good stable base to be able to squat from. So we've got our stance right, we've kind of walked the bar out and we're ready to squat. So first we break down to the eccentric phase and the concentric phase. So obviously eccentric, we're going to bring the bar down into the bottom of the squat. Concentric, we're then firing back up to a standing position. So start with the eccentric phase, okay? It's very important how you start the squat. So I use a couple of cues with my lifters, whether that's knees out, or also kind of like, I will say show us your dick. It's effectively pushing your knees out, exposing your groin to the front, okay? I work with rugby players a lot, so they tend to be a bit potty-mouthed and enjoy that kind of cue. But you know, from there you're going to have your foot in your normal stance we talked about. You're going to start with this, take a nice deep breath, push that air down into your belly and push out against the belt if you're using one. If not, just hold your core nice and tight. We start from the shoulders, we go from the top downwards, we pull that bar tight onto our back. Same cue as the deadlift, we're using that bend that bar. This time we're just pulling it as hard as we can onto our back. Imagine you're trying to bend the bar over your shoulders. Your elbows should be pointing back towards your back pockets. So I'm a big believer in that your forearm angle is going to match the angle of your torso as you come out of the squat. So you need to maintain a nice solid position with your elbows pulling back and down towards your back pockets. So from there we're looking to hip hinge, so we're pushing the hips back and then straight away forcing the knees out. So the knees will come out through our descent down into the bottom. This is incredibly important. If you don't push your knees out enough and open your hips up, what will happen is you'll end up hinging at the hip and going into that forward squat position. So it's very common with novice lifters, you'll see them coming out the bottom of the squat and they're getting buried with it. They're effectively doing a good morning movement where their shoulders, hips are shooting up and their shoulders are staying forward and they've created this horrible angle. I think this is a really solid way of squatting. The reason for that is I'm trying to keep my glutes, quads, all the main kind of power movers in the squat underneath the barbell. That's the reason a lot of guys will use a low bar squat, is because they can move that bar back and keep it a little bit more over their glutes. But we're talking about high bar right now, and for us it means we have to work extra hard on maintaining that upright posture. So the chest is staying up, we're getting our lats nice and tight, we're pushing our knees out, and we're keeping that position all the way down to the descent. Alright, so we're halfway there. We're down to the bottom of the squat now. We've built a lot of tension up by going down nice and tight. Imagine we're like a coiled spring again. We're producing that force down at the bottom. We're kind of building that force and then we're ready to explode up. From here, guys, it's all about maintaining that tightness again. So we're talking about lat tightness. So it's tighten the bottom of the squat, holding that upright position. One of the big cues I like to use here is shoulders first. So I like people, or the guys I'm coaching, to think about moving their shoulders first upwards and back. And that way it kind of cues them to avoid their hips shooting forward. Okay. From here we keep focused on forcing those knees out, so don't get that knees drifting in too much. We're driving straight back and up. Very simple movement, guys, but a lot of people kind of forget it. What we do not want is kind of folding into that squat. You see a lot of the time where hips will shoot first and then their shoulders will follow. A good little tip here is if you're struggling with this movement, try doing some pause squats. So take a lighter weight, stay in that position, stay nice and tight to the bottom of the squat, hold for a 3 to 5 second hold, and then fire back up. Okay, it just slows the movement down, makes the load more manageable, means you can focus on that movement coming up and out the hole. A question we get with the squat is, how deep should I go? There's a lot of misinformation out there. For me, with my guys, I'll get them to squat to a depth they're comfortable squatting to. Obviously, you want to avoid squatting to a position that you're not comfortable with or your body won't allow you to get into. The majority of us are looking for a parallel squat. That's the kind of powerlifting standard, a good standard to go to. By parallel, I mean the hip crease in line or slightly below the knee. In order to get to that position, you need to have correct mobility, both mobility at the ankle, knee and hip. And for that, there's a couple of drills you can do. So what I like to do when I'm warming up, I found I've put this with multiple guys who have had issues with their hip range, and it's helped massively. So I'll go into a goblet squat to start with 10 reps. So I'm holding the dumbbell up and out in front of me and squatting back and down. A goblet squat allows you to squat a little bit deeper because the dumbbell is out in front of you and held nice and high. From there, I'll go into a hip circle. So on all fours, bring the knee up, back and out and round. So nice big circles. I'll hit 10 of those on each side. And then finally, I'll finish with a mountain climber, hitting 10 reps each side in a mountain climber. I find that I'll do 2 or 3 rounds of this. I'm sweating, I'm ready to squat, I'm not wasting time, I'm definitely warm and ready to go. So another limiting factor with squat depth is the ankle range, or range of motion at the ankle. I'm gifted, I've got quite mobile ankles, and get into a good squat position. If you don't, you might need to work on it. There's a couple of different movements you can do with that, whether it's a banded traction and pushing the ankle into that range, whether it's hanging out on a step, or alternatively, a great tip would be to make sure you get the correct set of weightlifting shoes. So the whole point of a weightlifting shoe is it will give you some artificial range at the ankle. So that heel, that's what it's designed for. It's designed to give a little bit more dorsiflexion of the ankle, or kind of allow for the ankle to go into that range, or simulate it by having that extra heel. That's a really good kind of purchase. So obviously you'll see some guys squatting a flat shoe. Me personally, I prefer to lift in a heeled shoe, and that's for that exact reason. I'm going from a high bar position, I'm staying nice and upright, I'm dropping my squat low, and I need that extra ankle range. So now on to the age-old question of high bar versus low bar squatting. I'm actually, I don't mind either one. I prefer to squat high bar. It's just the way I kind of learned to squat when I was formerly a rugby player, and I also think that a high bar squat gives a lot more carryover to other events, whether that's to deadlifting, to the squatting strongman competitions for me. One of the big reasons for that is, it's very difficult to low bar squat an axle, and the current trend at World's Strongest Man has been using a axle and kind of large globes to squat with, and the high bar position is a lot more stable and allows you to stay in that position. But a low bar squat can have its benefits. The further you can move that bar down your back, obviously you're going to be moving it over your hips a little bit more, and combining an upright position with a low bar squat, it can be devastatingly good. Look at some of the Ukrainian lifters in the IPF, they're able to perform this position and perform a squat very, very well. So it's definitely an option if you're looking to go down the powerlifting route, but just because you're using a low bar squat does not mean you need to go to a traditional wide stance powerlifting squat, in my opinion. I think that it shifts the hips too far back, and yes, you can talk about leverages, but I just don't feel it's an efficient way of squatting. I think a more upright position is a lot easier for people to learn, and a lot more sustainable in the long run, because you can kind of push the bar position around and improve your squat that way. And I think it's going to give you much better carryover to other events. So since kind of West Side has come to prominence, there's obviously been a lot of specialty bars and those coming in. In my opinion, nothing replaces a standard barbell squat. There's a lot of people who go to a safety bar to protect their shoulders a little bit. And yes, while that is good, it is protecting your shoulders, you're training still obviously back, legs, glutes. Are you really in the correct position to train the squat as a skill? And I don't think so. I think you can come a cropper if you come to competition when you need to be squatting on a standard barbell. So by all means, the safety bar, which simulates a front squat a little bit in terms of where the weight sits. Obviously the weight sits a lot higher in a safety bar than on a normal squat, so it does definitely make it a bit more challenging. But it has to be programmed right, and I think still a standard squat is going to be the staple of most programs. So if you're someone who's looking to improve their squat, make sure you're training it often enough. A minimum, I'd say, of once a week with your squat, unless you're getting to it, or an advanced lifter or a more senior lifter where you might need to go once every 10 days if you're lifting heavy enough. But for most beginners, look to either once or twice a week training a squat with different intensities, as well as trying to get as many different squat variations as you can. Here, I don't feel stuff like leg extensions and other machine-based exercises are going to give you that much carryover towards your squat. An example squat program could be 5 sets of 5 with your standard squat, and then dropping the weight and going for pause squats for a further 3 sets, and then finally going into front squats for another kind of 3 sets of 5 to 8 to 10 reps. Just build all those patterns, try and keep the squat pattern in as many different movements as you can, and that's how you can get better. So that's my simple guide to squatting. Hopefully there's a couple of points that maybe you haven't thought of was going to help you with your training. If you've liked this video, make sure you check out the other videos in the series, check out the deadlift, check out the log press tutorials. There will be definitely more tutorials than this. Subscribe to the channel, guys, help me out. Comment below if this has helped you, if anything, or if you'd like some more clarity, ask in the comments, I'll get around to them now.